Good evening, everybody. I think we will we'll kick off because we are expecting some votes this evening. So we're going to see some MPs coming in and out over the course of the evening. So let's kick off. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Republic of Cyprus, Mr. Iωάννης Κασουλίδης. We will eventually have the Minister for Europe and shadow ministers we have. Honourable and right members of Parliament, High Commissioner of the Republic of Cyprus, ambassadors, councillors. We have a number of Cypriot councillors here this evening. Dear friends and colleagues. On behalf of the National Federation of Cypriots, I would like to welcome you all to this evening's event and to thank you for joining us despite everything else that's going on in Parliament and the wider country at the moment. After 2 years of hosting this event virtually, I'm delighted that we can once again bring together our UK Cypriot community and its elected representatives in one room to reaffirm our joint commitment to a reunited Cyprus and to the end of the Turkish occupation. Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine earlier this year has brought back painful memories for our diaspora, especially in the run-up to July 20th, which marks 48 years since Turkey's illegal invasion and continued occupation of the northern third of the Republic of Cyprus. Now, these 48 years have been long, dark, and painful years for our UK diaspora, many of whom are refugees and are desperate to return to their family homes. And despite the sadness of this anniversary, our hope for a reunited Ireland never dwindles, and we believe that a Cyprus where Cypriots can live and prosper together is both attainable and viable. Unfortunately, Cyprus continues to have to deal with an increasingly intransigent Turkey. This year alone, we've seen President Erdogan of Turkey and the Turkish Cypriot leader repeatedly and openly calling for Cyprus to be permanently partitioned, creating new fait accompli to enable their goal of partition, such as the recent illegal opening of part of the fenced-off city of Varosha, exploiting the refugee crisis by facilitating illegal crossings across the Green Line, refusing to even discuss confidence-building measures that would pave the way to achieving the goal of reunification of the island, and tightening Turkey's grip on the occupied north with a new economic and financial protocol that suppresses fundamental freedoms and that has led to mass demonstrations in the occupied areas. Now, in the face of this, as a UK Cypriot diaspora, we are clear that the only way to end the Turkish occupation is through reuniting Cyprus as a bizonal, bicommunal federal republic with political equality, with a single sovereignty, single international personality, and single citizenship, as defined by the relevant UN Security Council resolutions. Indeed, our diaspora has been making its voice heard loud and clear in recent weeks, with thousands of people emailing their local MPs. Over 60% of MPs, that's 396 MPs, from constituencies spanning from Caithness in the north of Scotland to St Ives in Cornwall, have received letters from their constituents asking them to condemn the ongoing occupation, to oppose Turkey's partition plans, and to stand up for a united Cyprus. As a guarantor power and an ally of Turkey, Britain has a critical role to play in persuading Turkey to engage constructively on the Cyprus issue and to ensure that Turkey and the Turkish Cypriot leadership table proposals that are within the UN agreed parameters. The UK doesn't just have a historic treaty obligation to Cyprus as a guarantor power, as a P5 Security Council member, and as the penholder on UN Security Council resolutions. It also enjoys a multi-dimensional relationship with Cyprus. To give just one example, on a recent visit to the island, the Deputy Commander of UK Strategic Command said Cyprus was, quote, absolutely essential to global security and the UK's global posture, whether that was getting people out of Afghanistan last year or responding to Russia's illegal and brutal invasion of Ukraine. The invasion of Ukraine has once again brought into sharper focus the idea that might is right must not be allowed to prevail. And just as the UK led the international response against Russia and rejected its expansionist proclamations, the UK must hold Turkey to the same standards. In closing, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the parliamentary supporters of Cyprus, the chairman and officers of the Cyprus APPG, as well as our friends in both houses of parliament. Your actions can make a real and lasting change to the lives not only of your constituents and the 300,000 Britons of Cypriot origin, but the fate of an entire population that is just asking for peace, justice, and the restoration of human rights. Thank you very much. Firstly, I would like to express the apologies of Sir Roger Gale, the chair of the APPG. He has had a minor routine operation He is recovering absolutely fine, but cannot be here with us this evening. But we have a number of APPG officers who I'm sure will do a valiant job of representing. Now, I recognise there's votes happening later, so if there are members who need to go and vote and want to speak, I think we'd ask them to speak first, and then the Minister will speak when the Minister for Europe arrives, probably in about 15 minutes or so. Alan, do you want to kick off if you need to go to vote?
Yes,
so Alan Smith is the SNP Foreign Affairs spokesperson.
Well, thank you, and Kalispera. Great to see you all here. You're all very welcome to Westminster. Forgive me, the MPs, we do have a debate ongoing and we will need to go and vote at some point, but I think it's also quite interesting for people from outside the complex to see just how strange it is when you're actually in the heart of it, that we need to run from one thing to another. But for me, Cyprus is personal. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, so Cyprus was the place that we went for our holidays twice a year to get out of the hot desert heat, to come to a place that we've got very happy memories on. We've got Scotland and the UK have a clear, close relationship with Cyprus. For me, it's very personal also that presently my little niece is on her first holiday job in Paphos and having a fantastic time. What she's getting up to, I don't really want to know, but I'm sure she's enjoying herself. And the ties that we have are real and very personal. And the SNP, we are an avowedly pro-European party. We want to see Scotland as an independent state back into the European Union. Now that's our domestic discourse, but I'm really proud to see Cyprus at the heart of the European Union's efforts in Ukraine, because the Russian invasion of Ukraine has changed so many foreign policy and defence aspects across our common continent. And I represent for the far northwest of the European continent. You guys are the far southeast of the European setup, and it's so important that we do remember that international solidarity, the issues that we're all dealing with, cross borders, and we need to work together regardless of our views on domestic politics. We support the rule of law, we support a united Cyprus, we support the efforts that we've heard already in terms of reuniting the island. So I'm very glad to be here tonight to express my solidarity with you, my support for you. We have a great relationship with your government and your High Commission here, and you've got a good team working for you. So very glad to be here to express the support of the SNP for your efforts, and I wish you an enjoyable evening. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Alan, and welcome Minister Graham Stewart, the newly appointed Minister for Europe. Thank you very much for joining us and making time in your diary at such short notice to be with us this evening. Next, I would ask the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Cyprus, Mr. Iωάννης Κασουλίδης.
Right Honourable Mr. Minister for Europe, right Honourable members of the Houses of Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. It is both an honour and a distinct pleasure to be at Westminster Palace this evening to address such a distinguished audience, including many esteemed members of both Houses of Parliament. I am particularly pleased that this annual event is taking place in person this year after the COVID-related restrictions of the last 2 years. It is rather evident that my presence comes at a very timely and critical juncture, to say the least. This event provides a unique platform to discuss and exchange views on a variety of different issues pertaining to Cyprus-UK bilateral partnership, the Cyprus problem, as well as other regional and international foreign policy issues. I would therefore like to thank both the members of all parliamentary party group on Cyprus and the National Federation of Cypriots for the organization of this event and for inviting me to offer some remarks on the issues I have just mentioned and the rationale driving our policies on these issues. Dear friends, history has traditionally been the driving force behind the relations between Cyprus and the United Kingdom. It constitutes the catalyst for the long-standing close ties we have enjoyed and continue to enjoy. It is not a static relationship, but one that is an established special relationship based on reciprocity and mutual respect. Maybe not as special as the UK-US special relationship, but nevertheless a very special one indeed. The bonds between our two countries date back in history as far as the reign of Richard the Lionheart, who left his mark on the island, including what must have been one of the first weddings destination, as he married Queen Berengaria of Cyprus and also Queen Berengaria in Cyprus, and also exported our famous Kumandaria. I recently had the opportunity to participate in the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Rwanda. Many of the shared policy priorities between the United Kingdom and Cyprus stem also from our unique Commonwealth family on 56 independent and equal states.
Excuse me, I must vote and then I will return.
Okay. Home over 2.5 billion people.
Should we pause you, have Caroline speak?
Okay.
Is that all? Because I do think they will be back after they've voted, I hope.
We'll be back.
Okay, great. They'll be back.
So it will be in sequence.
Caroline is abstaining on the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill tonight. You can read into that what you like. Caroline is Vice Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Cyprus and led the recent delegation to Cyprus back in November, where we took a group of 10 MPs or so. So thank you for staying with us, Caroline, whilst everyone else has run off to vote. I'll leave you to speak.
Good evening, Minister for Foreign Affairs, ladies and gentlemen. I will move the microphone nice and close to me. I'm slightly perturbed because Christos has managed to give most of my speech already. But just by way of explanation, I have chosen not to vote in this evening's divisions, which gives me the opportunity to spend a bit more time with you than other members and to also continue my game of musical chairs, which I am very much enjoying this evening. I have the privilege tonight, and indeed back in November, to deputise for Sir Roger Gale, a long-standing and committed friend of Cyprus, and he asked me last year to lead the delegation of members of Parliament to Cyprus, and he asked Christos yesterday when he explained that he couldn't be here because he had a very minor operation. He said, that's okay, Caroline will be there, notwithstanding the fact that I had several commitments elsewhere. But as I hope a good friend of Cyprus, and the Foreign Minister already commented that it was my duty tonight to filibuster for the 10 minutes that everybody will be missing, and I apologise, you will become very bored with me. But I just wanted to pass on Sir Roger's very best regards to you all, and to tell you a terrible secret, which is that this week I'm also appointed Sir Roger's proxy voter. So there is a good bond of trust between Roger and I. I think when he appointed me, he anticipated it was only for the elections of the 1922 committee, but it transpires that I'm doing quite a bit more as well. Now look, I just wanted to explain very briefly, well actually in 10 minutes, the purpose of parliamentarians visiting Cyprus. And it is crucially important. So when we travelled out there in November, it was the first time there had been a delegation of the new Parliament because of COVID. And it was an opportunity for new parliamentarians, some of whom are present here this evening. So Mark Jenkinson, who was at one point sat to my right before I was moved, was one of the parliamentarians who had the opportunity on being elected in 2019 to join the all-party parliamentary group and then to travel to Cyprus with us as part of the delegation. And there was also, and it's a true cross-party delegation, and there was also Anam Kesar from the Scottish National Party, Caroline Dinage, a fellow Conservative, and a number of Labour MPs travelled out to see for themselves at first hand something that I had been fortunate to see on my first visit to the island in, I think, about 2016. It's my guess, and I'm looking to Spiros, who is one of my councillors in Southampton, to check whether that was it was the right year, 2016. And to see the reality of a partitioned island, to listen firsthand to the accounts of Cypriots as to what they had experienced back in 1974, what that had meant for their lives in the intervening, at that point, 47 years, now very nearly 48 years of a partitioned island. And we got to stand on the roof of the visitor centre and overlook Famagusta, which I have to say was not quite as good a tour as I had all those years previously when we had gotten right up to the city and seen a ghost town. And for many members of the delegation, it was their first visit to Cyprus. It was their first opportunity to talk to Cypriots, to meet with both members of Parliament and the President of the Parliament, to listen to what the impact, the ongoing 48 years worth of impact of a partitioned island. And they became, as I became all those years ago, a friend of Cyprus, looking to use the history, the link between Cyprus and the UK, to continue the relationship, to continue to look for solutions that would involve, as Christos said in his introduction, restoring peace, justice, and the restoration of human rights. So a hugely moving and interesting visit for members of Parliament. And it is our thanks to the APPG and indeed to the Cypriot Parliament who made that possible, who spent so much time with us, informing us, helping us understand the situation, allowing us to go on a lengthy and fascinating walking tour of Nicosia to see what the reality of a partitioned capital is like. Now look, we have, how can I put this delicately, a period of upheaval over the course of the next few weeks. I hope that very swiftly we will whittle down the Conservative leadership contest to the remaining two. And I think at that point it is absolutely critical that you all use your influence to ask the questions. What is our role going to be in Europe and indeed the world going forward? What is the UK's ongoing commitment to Cyprus? Because these people are the candidates who will be the Prime Minister, and probably the Prime Minister for the next 2 years. So all of you have the opportunity to use your influence, those of you who are councillors, to ask the questions and to make sure that your elected representatives are posing the correct questions of them in the remaining hustings, although I'm prepared to concede that the first one is now already over and done with. But I wanted to say this evening to Christos, thank you for your continued programme of education of parliamentarians. It is an ongoing challenge. We had big churn at the last election. We may well have big churn at the next one. But I can see at the back we have Mike Wood has joined us, who was also on the delegation. And Mike, this I'm not sure how many times you've been to this meeting with the APPG for Cyprus, but it's customary at this point for you to come forward and share your reflections.
Mike Wood, as Caroline said, joined us on the APPG delegation back in November, is the MP for Dudley South. That's right. And has some very good Cypriot friends in his constituency. Mike, do you want to say a few words?
Thanks, Chris Austin. And yes, as Caroline was saying, I think all of us found the experience of walking through Nicosia really eye-opening, but also, of course, some of the other trips around Cyprus, seeing the impact that nearly 50 years after the invasion is still a reality of everyday life for people across Cyprus, and of course that's felt within our communities here in the UK by the Cypriot diaspora and their families. So I'm afraid I was supposed to be chairing another event somewhere else, so I've got to dash off, but I just wanted to pop in and really thank you all for all that you're doing to make sure the parliamentarians here in the UK are aware of the strength of feeling of their constituents here in Britain, but also, above all, are aware of what continues to happen day by day, week by week in Cyprus. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike, for popping in, and thank you, Caroline. Now it seems like we're getting everyone back from voting. Minister Kasulides, would you like to continue where you left off?
Well, I was left off when I was talking about the contribution of the fact that we are members of the Commonwealth and what happened in Rwanda. But let me now return talking about the bilateral relations between the UK and Cyprus, which include education, business services, commerce, but also security and defense-related matters. We continue to share our common law traditions and follow UK accounting rules, both of which greatly facilitate a seamless connection in investment, commercial, and trade exchanges. We are also exploring potential areas of cooperation in the post-Brexit era and are also at the later stages of finalizing an MOU that would put our cooperation in numerous fields in a more structured footing. The recent agreement on the non-military development in the areas of the British bases was a historic development which opens up significant economic, tourist, and commercial prospects in the municipalities and the communities that fall within the bases. Ultimately, this will have a positive impact in many individuals. However, we are most prominently bound by our common dedication to democratic values and principles, the long history of democracy in this country has always been a beacon of inspiration for our institutions, our laws, and our values. An essential element of our cooperation and relationship is the people-to-people dimension. Cyprus receives more than 1 million British tourists every year, many of whom are repeat visitors. The UK remains a favorite academic destination, and at any given time, about 1% of the population of Cyprus are studying here in the UK. The vast majority of the foreign ministry personnel, including myself, have attended a UK university. Moreover, more than 300,000 Cypriots live in the UK, while 40,000 Brits permanently reside in Cyprus. Young professionals from Cyprus who have chosen to make the UK their home throughout the years distinguish themselves in the community. We are proud of them and thankful to the UK for welcoming Cypriots to live and work here. The fact that Cypriots living in the UK are held in such high esteem by their fellow Britons makes them the best ambassadors of our island to your island, being fully integrated also in the social fabric of the UK. Honourable members and distinguished guests, we are truly witnessing tectonic shifts in the global landscape. War, impending famine in the most vulnerable countries, economic and energy crisis. In these turbulent times for our continent and the severe global spillover following the Russian invasion against Ukraine, it is a matter of principle to uphold the territorial integrity, unity, independence, and sovereignty of states. For Cyprus, as you know, these principles are of cardinal importance. Our immediate direct response to the aggression against Ukraine could not have been otherwise. We need to make a compelling argument for a rules-based global order and the primacy of international law. We cannot allow the maxim, might is right, to prevail. Cyprus strongly condemned the Russian invasion and the gross violations of human rights there. We have fully implemented all these action packages decided at the European Union level, including closing our airspace to Russian aircraft. We moved swiftly to withdraw authorizations for port visits that had been given to Russian naval vessels. This was done only hours after the invasion and months before the relevant sanctions by the EU against Russian-flagged vessels. The plight of the Ukrainian population, forced to leave their homes and seek refuge in neighboring countries, is also close to our heart and resonates with every Cypriot, particularly those who themselves are refugees, including British Cypriots amongst us this evening. It was therefore a natural and automatic response to stand with the people of Ukraine. My fellow Cypriots did not stock up with essentials or engage in panic buying when the Russian tanks rolled into the Ukrainian towns out of fear of shortages and the looming risk to food security. They collected, mostly through individual contributions, the largest ever humanitarian aid package in the history of our island, in what was a true show of solidarity to the suffering of the people of Ukraine. Dear friends, it is often said that geography is destiny. Cyprus is located in a politically sensitive and volatile region. What goes on in the wider Middle East and the Balkans is crucial in promoting peace and stability in our neighborhood. In the region of the Eastern Mediterranean, Cyprus has worked to create a bilateral and multilateral institutional framework in which all stakeholders may cooperate harmoniously and work towards creating synergies that are of mutual benefit. An arrangement open to all those that adhere to the set of principles which have summed to define the international system following the Second World War. A rules-based international order anchored on international law and good neighborly relations. Our foreign policy priorities are therefore clear. Cyprus is a credible, reliable, predictable, and dependable partner to our friends in the region, on the continent, and beyond. It was almost a decade ago when I had the honor to address a similar audience at Westminster Palace, and I posited then that the reorientation of Cyprus' foreign policy was a strategic goal and a priority for this government. I can declare today that this strategic goal has been achieved. Honorable members, distinguished guests, endurance and resilience through adversity is what describes the hard-working people of Cyprus. Out of the tragic disaster of the 1974 Turkish invasion and continued occupation over a third of our territory by Turkish troops, Cypriots displayed resilience. Our economy was totally destroyed, and we had to urgently attend the needs of 1/3 of our population that was internally displaced. A figure that if were applied to the UK would amount to approximately 20+ million persons forcibly expelled from their homes. We overcame these harsh conditions, and in a few years, the combined efforts of the government and the private sector led to what it has been called the Cyprus economic miracle. The reaction of our people towards adversity is dignified and determined. In the same way, we were able to overcome the harsh economic situation we found ourselves in the beginning of the previous decade. The British government expeditiously dispatched a team of experts to provide valuable technical assistance to Cyprus, and this is something that was greatly appreciated by our government and people. Dignified, determined, and resilient was the attitude that helped us overcome the fear and uncertainty on the pandemic. The same will be the attitude coming out of the turbulence and instability that this current crisis brings. Honourable members, distinguished guests, we stand at a critical juncture as regards the Cyprus problem. The Cyprus government has repeatedly expressed its commitment for a swift resumption of the talks and has demonstrated its dedication to addressing the need to cultivate a positive climate before and during the negotiations. We have proposed a set of bold confidence-building measures with the aim to provide Turkish Cypriots with the opportunity to use the port of Famagusta under EU supervision and the airport of Timbu under the control of the UN, following international rules and legality, in exchange for the handover of the fenced area of Varosha to the UN, in order for the rightful owners to be allowed to return as prescribed by UN Security Council resolutions. We have also taken unilateral steps, such as the introduction of expedited procedures for the issue of globally acceptable vaccination passes to the Turkish Cypriots. The expansion of the list of goods allowed at the crossing points to enter the single market to include processed foods. To alleviate the dire economic situation of the Turkish Cypriots caused by the fluctuation in the Turkish economy and lira, in combination with their continued dependence on and control by Turkey, trade union initiatives have welcomed many Turkish Cypriots to take jobs in the government-controlled areas of Cyprus. These significant and tangible confidence-building measures have regrettably been rejected by the Turkish Cypriot leadership. Our government aims for a solution as soon as possible through negotiations on the basis and in accordance with the relevant resolutions of the UN Security Council in the framework of the Group Offices of Secretary General of the UN. The agreed framework for a bizonal, bicommunal federation is unfortunately undermined by both Ankara and the Turkish Cypriot leadership that focuses on upending the process and insists on unacceptable preconditions for the resumption of talks. Unilateral actions of opening parts of the fenced area of Varosha and provocative and inflammatory rhetoric, needless to say, do little to help improve the climate between the two communities. At the same time, our government refrains from rhetoric or actions in response to these provocations. In this context, let me stress that we hope for a constructive UK stance on the adoption of the next UN Security Council resolution in the coming days. We hope that the UK, as a permanent member of the Security Council and penholder of Cyprus-related resolutions, will contribute in a positive manner. Turkey has proven to be an unreliable partner in its Western allies. It has ignored sanctions. For weeks it has performed a publicity stunt as mediator between Russia and Ukraine, and more recently sought a role in the wheat crisis. Allegations of allowing Russian oligarchs to use Turkey to avoid sanctions, or that grain stolen from Ukraine has somehow found its way to Turkey, have not yet been disproven. Is Ankara interested in a regional, rules-based order from which everyone stands to gain? Or is it playing a zero-sum game in an effort to exert regional dominance at the expense of the rest? I want to underline, we cannot afford the luxury of wishful thinking when it comes to such crucial matters. Honourable members, distinguished guests, We do not ask of our partners and friends to choose sides, but rather to choose between what is right and what is wrong. Global champions of values and principles, such as the United Kingdom, can compartmentalize their relations with a regional bully like Turkey. You may enjoy excellent bilateral and trade relations with Turkey, but importantly, maintain a strong stance upholding values and principles when it comes to the Cyprus problem. Dear friends, more than ever before in our history, Cyprus and the United Kingdom need to work harmoniously together, and I look forward to the strengthening of the bilateral relations between our two countries. In ending, allow me to express my deepest thanks and appreciation to the members of the APPG, both those present and those who could not be with us, as well as other parliamentarians, for your continued support, solidarity and dedication to the just cause of Cyprus and with the people of Cyprus in our efforts to reunite our island and its people and end the Turkish occupation that is nearly a half a century old. Thank you from a grateful nation and its people. Thank you very much.
Minister Kasulis, thank you very much for that wide-ranging speech. Next up, I would like to ask the Minister for Europe, Graham Stewart, to make his remarks. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you and good evening, and thanks to Christos and the APPG for hosting us tonight, and to all of you for this fantastic turnout on a very hot and slightly sticky evening. But I'm delighted to be speaking alongside His Excellency, the Foreign Minister Kasulides, and who has been so influential in UK-Cyprus relations in recent years, and is the first European Foreign Minister that I've met since I took up my appointment so recently as the Minister for Europe.
Another good question.
Now, the Minister talked about the character of the Cypriot people. Dignified, determined, resilient. And I think you, sir, personally exemplify all those qualities, so it's quite a good combination to have you being able to be here representing Cyprus and continuing our close friendship. And you touched on in your speech, sir, the future memorandum of understanding between the UK and Cyprus, which will, as you said, allow us to set the wheels in motion to strengthen our bilateral relationship, which is already strong, even further. And you touched on in your speech about the democratic principles that bring us together, and what is best represented by this room, the people-to-people relationship at its heart. Because after all, it's not just the tourists or the people who live, it's just so many ways in which we have a lot in common, and in which those relationships from grassroots all the way up to ministers gives a special flavour to the relationship between the UK and Cyprus. Education, tourism, the law, trade and investment, you refer to all of these, sir, and all of those things bring us together and make us stronger together as a result. Now, the visit of the Right Honourable Sir Lindsay Hoyle, we saw not only the Right Honourable Speaker's first overseas visit, but he was also the first official visit of a UK Speaker of the House of Commons to Cyprus. And of course that happened this year, and it showed that our parliamentary relations are also in good shape, as well as our governmental ones. Our personal connections are second to none, and I'm delighted that we have so many Cypriot students here, as well as tens of thousands of Brits living in Cyprus. But our relationship, of course, runs beyond all those things as well. Recently, we've stood side by side, as you touched on, sir, to condemn Putin's barbaric actions in Ukraine. We've worked together to adopt sanctions following Russia's military aggression, and you set out how quickly you moved to make those real. And I welcome the new National Sanctions Implementation Unit in Cyprus and the assistance from the UK's Office for Financial Sanctions Implementation towards that office's creation. We worked internationally together as part of the Commonwealth and the Council of Europe too. And in February, of course, we signed an agreement to protect and promote LGBT rights around the world as well. In June, their Royal Highnesses, the Earl and Countess of Wessex, visited Nicosia to celebrate the strength of the UK-Cyprus bond in the Jubilee year, and I know that they had an extremely warm welcome, for which we're grateful. This month, we're looking forward to welcoming Cypriot athletes to the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, and that will be a great festival. The Games are such a celebration of friendship and healthy competition, though I understand, if I've got the technicalities right, that we will both need to make it to the quarterfinals of the men's beach volleyball if we're actually going to meet on the field. So we'll see how that goes. But our friendship really is a rich tapestry. That's why the UK is a dedicated partner in the search for a just and lasting settlement for the island of Cyprus, where we continue to be one of the largest contributors, of course, to the UN peacekeeping force. And I'm conscious that the need for peacekeepers and the ongoing division still on the island, the displacement, the loss of property, are a source of deep pain for many, including those who are in the room today. I would like to assure our Cypriot friends of the UK's support for a comprehensive, just and lasting settlement of the Cyprus issue. We believe that the way to address many of the long-term issues remains through a settlement within the UN parameters. We've been clear that this should be based on the existing lines of a bizonal, bicommunal federation with political equality. And we believe those parameters are broad enough and flexible enough to accommodate the interests of both the Greek Cypriot and the Turkish Cypriot communities for the peace and security of a united Ireland, which I'm sure is a vision we share. Certainly we share frustrations too with the current situation, but we will press on with the UN, the other guarantor powers, and the leaders of Cypriot communities to find solutions. The UK believes that a reunited Cyprus would unlock major economic opportunities in trade, investment, and tourism. It would open up the possibility of a new clean energy and economic partnership on the island and across the region. In short, a settlement would create a more stable future for everyone. So we have got to keep going. We've got to keep working to bridge differences and build trust. I also want to be clear that the UK will oppose strongly any destabilising actions, either in Cyprus or the wider Eastern Mediterranean, and we actively support Security Council resolutions covering for Russia. We have called for Turkish actions to cease and be reversed, and we will make sure the Council responds to actions in Varosha in an appropriate manner. But it's, of course, for all parties to ensure that tensions do not spiral, because that's not in anyone's interest. So, Your Excellency, Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, for the many Cypriots who call the UK home and the many Brits who do likewise in Cyprus, I'll close by reaffirming the UK's wonderful friendship with Cyprus and wish all its peoples a secure and peaceful future. Thank you very much.
Please don't call me.
Minister, thank you very much for your speech and your reassurances, both to parliamentarians and the community. Much appreciated. Next, I would like to ask Fabian Hamilton, the Shadow Peace and Disarmament Minister, who will speak on behalf of the Labour Party.
Thank you very much, Christos. Your Excellency, Foreign Minister Kasulides, Your Excellency, High Commissioner Andreas Kakouris, parliamentary colleagues and friends, it is, as always, a pleasure to be here, and I thank you once again for inviting me to speak at this fantastic annual event. I seem to be following Minister Graham Stewart around for the last few hours since we were in this room just a short time ago in the middle of a debate, and then we were at the Foreign Office, so forgive me, Graham, but welcome to your new post, and thank you for what you said. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I no longer have responsibility for Cyprus on the Labour Party's front bench, but that changes nothing when it comes to my personal and unwavering support for the Cypriot people to be reunited as part of a bizonal, bicommunal federation. Indeed, like so many of my parliamentary colleagues, I always feel completely at home when I'm here with you at this event, at other events, and indeed when I visit the wonderful island of Cyprus. So this event comes, as we know, at a very important time. Authoritarian regimes in Europe are becoming more aggressive towards their neighbours, and Russia, as we've heard, is waging an illegal and unjustified war in Ukraine. And I think that makes it so important that the United Kingdom throws its diplomatic weight behind Cyprus to make clear that nothing more and nothing less than a bizonal, bicommunal federal political settlement will be acceptable to both the United Kingdom and the wider international community. Tonight I'm speaking in place of my colleague, and who is Labour's Shadow Europe Minister, Stephen Doughty. He's currently abroad. But he's also a strong and unwavering supporter of Cyprus and the reunification of its people. Stephen and I visited Cyprus in May to reaffirm our commitment to a future Labour government playing its full and active role as a guarantor power of the Cypriot constitution. But ladies and gentlemen, unifying Cyprus goes much further than party politics. It's also, and mainly, I think, about the reunification of communities, of families, and of friends. And that's why I think it's so vital that we work together across our Parliament in the UK to support the long-standing and historic UK government policy on Cypriot reunification. And to that end, it really is great to see the Minister here alongside us today with many other MPs from all parties. I think it's in the interests of Cyprus and its future prosperity and security that we continue to work together to achieve that political settlement. Now, as the pen holder for Cyprus at the United Nations, the United Kingdom has a responsibility to aid the reopening of dialogue between the Republic of Cyprus and the North, just as the UK government has done in the past. But it also has a responsibility to British Cypriots, who thrive in this country and play such a vital role in so many of our communities across the United Kingdom. The people of Cyprus deserve and need a solution to this historic stalemate, which benefits absolutely nobody in its current guise. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 39 years since the unilateral declaration of independence came from northern Cyprus, and as tensions grow in Famagusta and as the ministers mentioned in Varosha, it's time that this sometimes forgotten division was put back into the centre of the international agenda, so that we may finally achieve a permanent peace and reunify the beautiful island.
Next, I would like to ask Teresa Villiers, who needs no introduction, a Vice Chair of the APPG, a long-standing, multi-decade friend of Cyprus, to say a few words. Teresa.
Thank you, Christoph, and a bit of warm welcome to everyone here today, including our very distinguished guest, Minister Kasulides, and His Excellency Andreas Kakouris, the High Commissioner. I would start by reiterating the simple fact that there's been a 48-year injustice here, and that is wholly and completely unacceptable. This is a gathering that wants to send out the call yet again that we want to see Turkish troops out of Cyprus. It is entirely unacceptable that a European state for so long has been occupied by the troops of a foreign power. And I'm sure all of you share my impatience, my frustration, my anger about that continuing situation. And that is why I will always be a friend of Cyprus. I fight for your cause every day, and I will continue to do so. And I'm sure it reawakened painful memories when you all saw on the TV screens those terrible pictures of an aggressive invasion of Ukraine by Russia. It would have brought back horrible memories of the invasion of Turkey all those years ago. And I want to reiterate my sympathy and support for everyone here who was directly affected by that invasion or who have family who were so. And I want to congratulate Minister Kasulides on an excellent speech. It is an honour to have him here with us in Westminster today. I was delighted that he talked about our historic ties between Cyprus and the United Kingdom. It seems to me that our ties and our relationships are better than ever. And it is indeed, yes, the case that they date back at least to Richard the Lionheart, whose statue is outside. And I think it's always good to reflect as we sit here in this 900-year-old hall, which is a symbol of British culture, that actually in Cyprus you've been part of a culture that dates back at least 2,000 years before we got going in these islands. And in Cyprus they were producing great works of art and literature at a time when we were still painting ourselves blue and living in huts. So we have much to learn from our Cypriot friends, both in the past and today. But I just absolutely warmly welcome what the Minister has told us about the renewed efforts to strengthen cooperation between the UK and Cyprus and build on that shared inheritance of respect for the rule of law and respect for democracy. And of course, we are both facing the same serious problems ahead with rising prices and in particular energy costs. It is, as the Minister said, a critical juncture for us economically, but of course in terms of Cyprus's political future again. And I feel saddened to hear of the efforts made by the government of the Republic of Cyprus on restarting negotiations, offering confidence-building measures, only to have them rejected by the Turkish side of the argument, only to see the response to be the provocative actions in relation to the beachfront in Famagusta and continuing interference with Cyprus's EEZ. So there is still much work to be done, I know, and I can understand your sense of frustration that we are here yet again, but all I can say is that I will continue to support your cause, and you have many friends in the UK Parliament who are determined to fight for your cause and one day see the free and united Cyprus once again. Thank you for coming to Westminster.
Teresa, thank you very much for that typically forthright speech and continued support. Next up, I'd like to ask the only parliamentarian that we have of Cypriot origin, the MP for Empton Southgate, Bambush Charalam, to say a few words.
Thank you, Christo, and thank you, Your Excellency, the Foreign Minister, Mr. Kasulides, for an excellent speech. Very welcome. And it was also very good to hear Graham Stewart, the Foreign Minister, the Minister for Europe's speech as well. So it's quite heartening to hear the remarks from the Foreign Office. We need to see more support for Cyprus. It's a pleasure to be meeting in person. It's been 3 years since we had our last meeting in person, so welcome everybody. It's great to see so many familiar faces again, but it is sad that we're meeting next week with the 40th anniversary of the invasion of Turkey, by Turkey of Cyprus, and it's sad that we are here again and that instead of progress we're seeing things go backwards with Turkey demanding partition of the island. We very much want to see things to be picked up from where they were left off at Crans-Montana. We think there was progress made there, and we want very much to see things happening that will move things along. But unfortunately, because of the state of various timing of elections that are happening both in Cyprus and Turkey, which could happen next year as well, progress doesn't seem to be forthcoming at the moment. Turkey seems to have reinvented itself. There seems to be this strange situation where Turkey believes it's a peace broker in between Ukraine and Russia, but yet refuses to entertain peace talks with Cyprus, which is very bizarre, in my view, behaviour for a country that behaves in such a schizophrenic way. And also, we need to make sure that the international community recognises that whilst Russia can be criticised for breaking international law, Turkey also needs to be criticised for breaking international law too, and needs to be held to account. At the moment, we've heard fine words about Turkey's breaking international law in relation to Varosha. We want to make sure that action is taken and that Turkey isn't just content, but further action is taken to make sure that Turkey doesn't just seem to get away with breaking international law, and that seems to happen on a regular basis. We also need to make sure that the international community doesn't just forget Cyprus because Ukraine has happened, which seems to be, whenever a conflict happens and it's been a long time, it seems to go down the agenda. We need to make sure that Cyprus is high on the agenda. And I congratulate Christo and the Federation for launching such a great campaign, making sure that MPs are contacted, are made aware of the issue. It's a really good thing. It's great to also be able to go on delegations. Both Geraint and Mark and Caroline, we went on a delegation to Cyprus in November. We met parliamentarians, we met the Speaker, we met the then Foreign Minister, Mr. Christodoulides, and we also walked along the Green Line and we spoke to people who'd suffered and as a result of the invasion from 1974. So these things are very important because I think parliamentarians need to be made aware of what's happened such a long time ago. So it is in people's minds, and we don't forget. So whilst I am the only MP of Cypriot heritage in Parliament, and I do my best to speak to as many of my colleagues as possible to remind them of what happened in Cyprus. I remember going on demonstrations when I was still at school, and it saddens me that so many years later we're still here and the island is still divided. We want to make sure we see a free and united independent Cyprus, and that happens as soon as possible, and that it's free of troops, and I'll do whatever I can to make that happen. I'm now lucky enough to be in the shadow Foreign Office team. I don't have responsibility for Cyprus or Turkey, but certainly it's a subject that we do discuss in the shadow Foreign Affairs team, and it is something that, well, you've heard Fabian's remarks, it is very much high on our agenda, and we want to make sure that progress follows. Many of you are constituents, so I've seen many of you around and about in Enfield Southgate. So please be assured that I will always speak up for you and I always represent you, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure that we bring about a free, united, independent Cyprus that's free of troops. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bambo. Our last speaker tonight is Geraint Davis, who is a friend of Cyprus, who has tabled a motion about Famagusta and Varosha at the Council of Europe, which I'm sure he will tell us a bit more about. Geraint.
Christos, Yasis. I'm Geraint Davis. I'm a member of the Council of Europe, which people will know is a grouping of 46 countries that stands up for democracy, human rights and the rule of law. Obviously Cyprus and Turkey are members of this, and on that basis, as Christos has said, I've moved a motion that's being progressed and negotiated through the Council of Europe, through those 46 countries. And with your indulgence, I'll briefly read out this motion so you know what I'm talking about. And basically, this was put obviously more than a year ago. Congratulating Cyprus on its 60th anniversary of independence, the Assembly reaffirms its support for a comprehensive settlement of the Cyprus problem on the basis of an agreed framework for a bi-communal, a bi-zonal federation with a single sovereignty, single citizenship and international personality and political equality as set out by the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions and the high-level agreements, noting, however, that this is yet to be achieved. Since the invasion by the Turkish troops in 1974, a section of Famagusta, Varosha, as we're all familiar, was sealed off and remains since then uninhabited under the direct control of the Turkish military. despite UN resolutions that provide for the return of the city's lawful inhabitants under UN auspices. We call on the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe to join the European Parliament, which in its resolution of 26 November 2020 on Varosha condemned Turkey's illegal activities in Varosha and warned that the city's partial opening weakens prospects of a solution exacerbating divisions and entrenching the permanent partition of the island. Underlying, it won't be much longer, right? Underlying the United Nations Security General call for the resumption of negotiations on the basis of the Common Declaration of 11th of February 2014 and a six-point framework of 30th June 2017 and the convergence achieved, the Parliamentary Assembly should, 1, call on Turkey to act according to the United Nations Security Council resolutions and return Famagusta to its lawful inhabitants. 2, reaffirm the Republic of Cyprus sovereign right to exploit its natural resources to the benefit of all the people of Cyprus, and we'll know those are at threat. And 3, urge the Council of Europe members states to exert pressure on Turkey to cooperate and refrain from action that are inconsistent with international law and relevant UN resolutions. So what's happened is basically I put this, it was supported by a number of countries, a number of parliamentarians. It went to committee, a rapporteur has been appointed. That rapporteur has now visited Cyprus on a fact-finding mission. It's talked to both sides, as it were, Greek and Turkish Cypriots. They will then go to both Ankara and Athens. And I guess the point here is that obviously I appreciate people in this room want reconciliation, we want to move forward, but ultimately we will have to do the very difficult work of finding a common place for common agreement for reconciliation to move forward as well. Obviously there's a lot of open wounds that are being reopened by some of the inflammatory language that's used around this, but ultimately we do need to move together in reconciliation so that Cyprus, at a time that we see the world at war certainly being sparked off in Ukraine, can act as an example to the rest of the world how different communities can live together in harmony. And by working in the next generation together, we can push forward rather than to provoke more division. So obviously I put forward that motion, I'll be supporting that motion. I'm doing this is actually an active bit of legislation, as it were, that's going forward. We need everyone coming around the table, and there's got to be a bit of give and take. If we're going to get reconciliation, we want harmony, peace and prosperity for all. So thank you so much. I've got to start.
Geraint, thank you very much for kind of closing the event on such a kind of positive note. And I'd like to thank all the speakers today, all the parliamentarians who spoke, but equally I'd like to recognise members of Parliament who I saw come in, actually mainly to hear the Minister speak. So I think you were the star attraction today. I saw Gagan Mahindra, I saw Chris Clarkson, Mike Freer, Catherine West, Munira Wilson, Dan Carden, Anoom Kassir and Baroness Doreen Massey. And Mark Jenkinson, who is the Treasurer of the APPG, has sat here kind of tirelessly throughout. So Mark, thank you very much for joining us and staying for the whole occasion. And finally, I'd like to thank Minister Kasulides for making the trip to London, for, I think, giving us such an extensive overview of Cypriot foreign policy. So thank you very much for making the time. I know you've kind of flown on to London from a different visit, so thank you for getting us into your schedule and coming and speaking with us tonight. Thank you very much. And thank you all for coming.